Welcome to the Fellowship Podcast, a place where we get to know the people who make up the Baptist Bible Fellowship. In each episode, we sit down with pastors, missionaries, and ministry leaders from across our fellowship to hear their stories, their ministry journey, and a few lessons they've learned along the way. Our goal is simple: to connect leaders, share stories, and strengthen the mission. And now, here's your host, Randy Harp. Let's join the conversation.
Well, welcome to our next edition of the Fellowship Podcast. My name is Randy Harp. I get to serve as your host and just share conversations that I have with lots of my friends from all across the country. And I have one of my good friends, Marty Hughes, which is just down the street from me in Oklahoma, not too far. Marty, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for inviting me. This is a wonderful privilege. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, good. So let me just ask you kind of to start, share a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? What was life like as a kid?
Well, I was raised in a preacher's home. My dad, Gene Hughes, pastored for all of my growing up years in Racine, Wisconsin. I like to tell people we were missionaries to the Yankees. Dad was from East Texas and Mom was from Kentucky, and God put us 70 miles north of Chicago and 15 degrees colder than Alaska, So, but that's where I grew up. Went to Baptist Bible College when I was 16 years of age, and
When you started?
that's when I started. Was young for my grade, graduated from an AC school a year early, and headed out, had the opportunity to be a part of Baptist Bible College during its heyday, over 1,100 freshmen. My freshman year, it was quite an experience.
Yeah, what year was that? What year was your freshman?
Fall of 1976.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking to Bruce Thomas not long ago, and he started in the early 70s, so he was there during the heyday also.
Yeah, it was an exciting time. I loved it. I look back on those days with very fond memories.
Yeah, so what was it like growing up in a preacher's home in Wisconsin?
Well, I don't have any horror stories. That's one thing. The thing about my dad was that he loved the Word of God. He loved the people of God. He never complained about the hardships of ministry. He made it seem like the greatest thing in the world, and so I never felt deprived in any way, even those were lean times. Small independent Baptist church in a part of the country where there weren't very many of us. We went there when I think it was 1965. There were 5 BBF churches in the state of Wisconsin at that time. We stayed 11 years, and when we left, there were 28 BBF churches in Wisconsin, and of course that has changed now.
Sure.
but
Yeah.
but it was a great time. I loved it. We lived in the front yard of the church, and the parsonage was right there, and it was I'm very happy with my childhood raised in a godly home and given me a great legacy.
Share a little bit about your salvation story. Growing up as a pastor's kid, was it early?
Well, I made a profession of faith early, but I really struggled through my early years with what I would refer to as just a improper perspective. I never really rebelled in the sense of turning away from faith. I just kind of got into my head that the way you become a Christian is you do Christian things. And so I was active in the church, doing all those, everything that I could do to help that ministry. But then when I arrived on campus at BBC, I was thrown into the middle of a group of people where so many of them were just vibrant Christian lives. And I began to recognize that what I was trusting in was the things that I'd been doing. And I had joined Cherry Street Baptist Church, and got very active as I could at that age and in that circumstance and during that time. But in January of 1977, B.R. Lakin came to Cherry Street, and he preached an 8-day revival. And I had been struggling with, just my condition, and I'd been convicted many times that maybe I had not really committed my life to Christ. And so every night of that 8-day revival, I went to the altar, just struggling, wondering what was going on. And the Sunday night, it was Sunday morning through the following Sunday night, the last sermon that Brother Lakin preached there, about the middle of the sermon, he said that God's Spirit will not always strive with man. There will come a day when he will convict your heart for the very last time. And it was as though the Lord spoke to me and said, Marty, this is it. This is your last opportunity. I thought I was going to get hit by a bus the next week if, you know, but I had, at that point, I had done everything that I could to be known, to be a part of the church and stuff. And I argued with the Lord. Man, all these people here know who I am, know what my testimony is, know I'm a Bible college student. Lord, I can't go down. It would be too embarrassing. And it's as if he spoke to my heart and said, Marty, you're going to let these people who love you and care about you send you to hell.
Wow.
And so when the invitation came, I went down to the altar, and Brother Charles Strong shared the scriptures that I'd heard 1,000 times, and I repented and turned my heart to Jesus Christ, and received him as my Savior that night, January 27th, 1977.
Hey, you were here at BBC during the heyday. Who were some of your closer friends? Who'd you run with when you were at college?
Oh man. Well, Greg Baxter and I were on an intramural basketball team together. Greg's a good friend of mine. Several Greg Burdine, who has been the state rep up in Michigan, his wife and my now wife. I say now, she wouldn't date me while we were at BBC, but we did. But I did find her and chase her down, and in a weak moment, she said yes. But
You
so
got to share. You got to share a little more on that. What do you mean she wouldn't date you when you were at BBC?
well, she was a very practical young lady, and I was not quite so much. The very first time I saw her was a open gym night at BBC, and she was an athlete. She was out playing basketball, and came over after that, and I was standing on the sideline. I'd been watching her. I said, "You know what? You're beautiful with your looks and my brains. Imagine the children we could have. Would you marry me?" Those were the first words she ever heard out of my mouth.
Oh,
And
I don't
she
know
looked,
what could go wrong.
yeah, right. And so she looked at the friend that she was with and said, "Get me out of here." And so I pursued her throughout that. That was January 78. I pursued her throughout our time at school, and we were friends. We became very good friends. She just didn't see me as a candidate for anything romantic, and so I finally convinced her to go out with me on a date, and I took her to the barbecue, Trotter's Barbecue. And obviously, Springfield at that time had so many wonderful things to do. After we were done eating, I said, "Well, would you want to go to the mall and walk around?" Nope, nope. I'd just rather go back to my room. She felt like she'd checked that off her list, and so I kind of gave up on that. But a year after I graduated, when I graduated, I went to Spokane, Washington, and served in a church up there for a year. And I had made it had been kind of a last minute decision leave quickly. I had served as Dr. Robert Terry's youth director at Crane Bible Baptist Church. Dr. Terry was a mentor to me and a second father, but he had been gone on vacation when I got the call to go. He knew that that was kind of something that I was wanting to do. So when I got back home, I went up to visit him, he and his family, and went to the North-South football game, or I think it was East-West by that time, football game that night. And Shelly and I ran into each other, and uh, it was love at 400th sight. And
You
we
were
started.
finally mature. You had been a pastor, right? Is that what it was?
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, more mature, we'll put it that way, you know. But we started writing letters back and forth, and um, January of 81, she was working with, excuse me, that was January of 82. She was working in the missions office there in Springfield, and I said, well, why don't you come to Fort? I was living in Fort Worth. I'd come home and gone to Southwestern to further my education. And I said, well, why don't you come down? They're having the National Fellowship meeting at Hallmark Baptist Church. And she did. And that's when I asked her to marry me. And in a weak moment, she said yes. And we've been married 43 years.
Thankful for those weak moments from our wives, right? When we convince them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, okay, talk a little bit. You said you were in Spokane. Is it Spokane? You call it Spokane or
Spokane.
Spokane?
Spokane. Yeah.
Spokane. They got that. The waterfalls right through the middle of town are beautiful, huh?
Oh, it's a beautiful place. I had never been out well, I had been all over the Midwest. That's really where I had grown up. I had all the contacts that I had were there. But while I was at BBC, a preacher came. He was pastor of Tri-City Baptist Temple up in Oregon, Washington area, and he'd come and tried to and preached and said, you know, we need guys up in the Great Northwest, and I'd kind of felt like maybe the Lord was leading us that direction. And there was a pastor at Inland Empire Baptist Temple in Spokane who had briefly pastored in Wisconsin while I was growing up. And so I wrote him a letter and said, you know, I feel like God might be calling me up there and looking for a place to serve. And he said, well, most of the churches up here are small. This was, you know, early 1980s. Really, you know, I don't know if there'll be anything, but, you know, we're looking at the possibility of needing somebody to come work in our school and work with our youth. And this was like in April before I graduated the 1st of May. And so I got my hopes up that that was all going to happen. Graduated, moved out to Crane because I hadn't heard any more from him. And I got a call at the end of July of that year, and he said, "Are you still interested in coming out and being on our staff?" And I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely." He said, "Well, I need you to go to Fort Worth and take a week's worth of ACE training and be here in 2 weeks." And so I loaded up everything I had in my 72 Chevelle Malibu and hit the road.
Uh,
And so as this all of his godly wisdom, he hired a 20-year-old single man to be the youth director and the principal of his Christian school and the high school learning center supervisor. And and he expected that since I just graduated from Bible college, I would know how to do all of those things, and that he wouldn't have to, you know, tell me a whole lot. But I I I was over my head very quickly in that situation, and it was it was it was my backside of the desert experience. I'm very thankful for it, but you know, again, I limped home 10 months later to Fort Worth with my tail between my legs with some very valuable lessons and a attitude adjustment about my ego took a real attitude adjustment. I think it really helped me in looking toward further future
yeah.
ministry for sure.
Well, what's one lesson you learned from that experience that you're still applying today?
Well, it really helped me focus on uh, whose expectations I need to always be focused on meeting.
Mm,
The truth is that in any role of ministry, you're going to have all kinds of people telling you what they expect out of you, but the expectations that you must always have at the forefront are what is it that God is expecting from me in this moment,
mm,
and that's where my primary focus has to be. I have to I want to be able to uh, please the people that I'm serving, to be able to reach into their lives and to connect. But first and foremost, I have to meet the expectations that God has for me.
yeah. So after you left Spokane, where else did you serve before you ended up in Grove, where you're at now?
Well, when Shelly and I got married, well, when I went, excuse me, when I got back to Fort Worth, I served part-time as a youth director in a church in Hurst, Texas, a World Baptist Fellowship church in Hurst, Texas, while I was going to seminary. And then when Shelly and I got married, she had grown up in Canton Baptist Temple, church of 2 or 3 thousand during her growing up years. She'd attended High Street Baptist Church. I'd grown up in a little small church, in Wisconsin. We ran around 100. But when we got married, I was on staff at this church in Hurst, a very small church, very fishbowl situation, and so I felt like it would be wise for me to resign that position and for us to take 6 months to figure out being a married couple before we tried to be a married couple in ministry. And um, there at that time there were like 28 BBF churches in the metroplex of Dallas Fort Worth, and I had been raised in a preacher's home and really never had an opportunity to choose which church I went to. So I told Shelly, I said, we're going to visit all of them before we decide what church we're going to go to. And she said, well, that's okay, but can we go to Brother Baird's church first? She had worked in the missions office when Dr. Bob Baird was the associate missions director, and then he had taken the church at Hallmark Baptist in Fort Worth. And I said, sure, that's fine. So we visited Hallmark on Sunday morning and joined on Sunday night. It was
Pretty easy decision, huh?
yeah, it just felt like home immediately, and we got in and served there for 2 years in volunteer capacity with their junior high department, and just really um, kind of got into a situation. I have to say, Brother Baird was not the best preacher that you've ever heard, but he is definitely the best pastor that I ever served under in any way. He just had a heart for people that was evident, and I learned several things there in that opportunity before going on to other roles of ministry.
Yeah. Where else? What other stops have you had really quick?
Well, I served in San Antonio, Texas, at Bethesda Baptist Church as a youth and music minister. Then we served in that same capacity in a church in Cherubusco, Indiana, about 15 miles north of Fort Wayne. And it was from those experiences basically lasted for about 10 years. And in 1988, the I went to the National Fellowship meeting in Springfield Fellowship Week, and it was one of the I can't remember if it was the Concerned Pastors Forum or what it was, but there was a
All the yellow
quite
buttons.
yeah, yeah, there was quite a row that went on during the business meeting and everything, and my heart was just impressed that. Um, that I couldn't do anything about that because I wasn't a pastor. And that, if I was going to make a difference, and if I was going to be honest with you, my concern for the fellowship at that time, this fellowship had, I have I have the BBFI in my DNA, and I wanted to have a role in that. And so I went home and told my pastor, I said, Shelley and I are going to be looking for a place to pastor. And he was very supportive of us. And brother Ken Gilming, I called him. He had been my pastor the first 2 years I was at BBC. I called him and he said, well, I just heard of a church that's come open in Lewisburg, Kansas. Brother Tim Taylor, who has served ever since then
Yeah.
until just this last year retiring in Vermont,
Right.
left that church. He had pastored there for 4 years, and I went and pastored Pioneer Bible Baptist Church in Lewisburg, Kansas.
Mm.
And then after 5 years, God brought us to Oklahoma. I pastored First Bible Baptist Church in Oklahoma City for 7 years. Then we merged our church with Kings Park Baptist Church there. I served 4 more years as the assistant pastor and worship pastor, principal of the Christian school, discipleship pastor, about 13 hats there. And then God opened the door for me to come to Grove, Oklahoma. And we've been here for 21 years.
Yeah, I was going to say 21 years you've been there in Grove, so that's a long time.
They've been patient with us. It was I'm the 13th pastor over the church's history. Uh, Ray Malugian served here for 11 years before I came.
Mm.
But the other 11 pastors totaled a little less than 27 years of the church's history. We came into a circumstance that was there was a lot of conflict and difficulty. Brother Ray told me that we had a great church, but we were about 3 funerals from a revival. And it took about 7 years for all of those things to work themselves out. But over the last, especially the last 15 years of the ministry here, it has been sweet, and God has blessed, and we have seen just God do some amazing things.
Yeah. Yeah, I love visiting your church. What's something right now in your ministry there that that's really driving you, that you're passionate about, you're excited about?
Well, we have two things really um, that really just show the hand of God working. We're running in the mid 130s, 140s, somewhere around there, and we have we participate in the Samaritan's Purse Operation Christmas Child shoeboxes. And we have a ministry that over these last several years has grown and grown and grown. And this year, our church produced 1,174 shoeboxes for that ministry that go all over the world, taking the gospel in places, and that's pretty exciting. We have a group of mostly ladies who just are passionate about that, who work on that all year long. The second thing is about a little over a year ago, one of our men was working in a factory here in the area and came in contact with a couple of young men who were a part of a ministry out of Jay, Oklahoma. It's about 25, 30 minutes. The ministry is about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from here, called CARE. It's Christian addicts in Christian alcoholics and addicts in recovery. And they go into this program. It's a year-long recovery program, and then they work outside of that, and the earnings they make go back to the ministry. And anyway, so two of these young men were working at the place that this man in my church worked, and he invited them to come to church. And so he started going down and picking them up. It was a very short time. They came to faith in Christ. They were baptized. We began to see more and more. And in this last year, we've had 8 or 9 of those young men come into our church. uh, be saved, baptized, graduate from the program, some of them going back home, different things like that. They've been discipled here. It's just been a very fruitful ministry, and just the spirit that our church has shown in the acceptance of them when they come in has been something that's been a particular blessing to my heart.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You talked earlier about the BBFI was in your part of your DNA. So you've been a part of it from your whole life. What are some roles you've had within the BBFI? Right now you're serving, I know, as the state rep for Oklahoma, but what else have you done within the BBFI?
Well, I've served as a missions field rep several 20 years ago, maybe more than that, 25 years ago, because it was when I was at First Bible. Um, I served as a field rep to Panama. The last several years, I've served as a field rep to Peru, went and took a visit there 2 years ago. Presently, I'm off of that role, but early on, my participation as far as in the national meetings was somewhat limited because for several years I was the newsletter editor for the Oklahoma BBFI. And so every time an election came up, for chairman or state rep, well, we don't want to move Marty out of that post. So that had kind of diminished, and so I've had the opportunity to serve as the state rep now, just reelected for a second term. So it's been a little over 3 years. Always have just loved the fellowship and the opportunities that it's given me.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Fellowship is one of the probably stronger state fellowships. What are some things that's working well within the Oklahoma State Fellowship? You got a lot of good pastors. That's a good start, but
Well, and that's really the key. Again, we are not a large group comparatively. It was one of the strongest fellowships in the BBFI until the Heartland split, and because of some of the leaders of that group, the vast majority of our churches went that direction. But we have some strong churches that love the Lord and love the fellowship,
yeah,
uh, and we are doing some things with church planting that I believe are really beneficial, and doing our best to reach out to some of those that it kind of got lost in the middle of all of that.
yeah,
It's really strange to say that all of that happened over 20 years ago now,
yeah. 25
Uh,
years ago, yeah,
that happened, the most of the at least political part of all that happened while I was serving in school ministry in that period of time right after our um, merger. So I didn't have the opportunity to really be any kind of an impact, having any impact or influence in that. It was pretty much settled after by the time I came back into this role as pastor. But again, anything that I've ever seen as a problem with the Baptist Bible Fellowship, I've always believed that you don't abandon something like that. You buckle down and you try to do your best to make a difference. And
yeah,
and so, I've never considered leaving our fellowship. I've felt like that if there were issues that need to be addressed, that we address them together. And right now, after being a part of what the executive committee and the state chairman, the state reps group are doing, I'm very excited about the future of the fellowship.
well, talk about that just real quick. You being a state rep, you kind of get to see behind the curtains a little bit of what's happening, and very involved in even the decision making. What's something that's exciting to you right now about the fellowship?
Well, I think that for the first time, really in our history, we're investing in continuity of leadership. In other words, we've had some dynamic leaders in the past, but because of the way that we were structured, especially that dynamic leadership was hampered to a certain extent because it's basically limited until that till that term limit goes out or whatever.
Mm.
Whereas now, both with your office as a central office that kind of helps to um, give us continuity between executive committees, between presidents, between this, that vision is able to continue to be somewhat consistent, and there's more invested in allowing that to continue to move forward rather than to stop and start and stop and start. And that's something that's exciting to me.
Yeah, I agree. That's good. Hey, take a minute, share a little bit more. What do you do? Because I want you to talk about this. What do you do when you're not pastoring? What's something that people don't know? Maybe a lot of people don't know about you, but I know you're pretty passionate about it and you do a great job with it.
Well, I love sports. I coached when I was in school ministry, coached basketball, had the opportunity to coach my kids and be a part of that. And of course, they both played basketball for Baptist Bible College, 4 years each, and so very passionate about all of that. And I had officiated basketball before I began coaching. And when finally I didn't have anything to do with a practice on October 1st of the year, I thought, well, you know what, I'll get back into officiating some basketball. And so I called the state association and asked, and they put me in contact with a man here in the area who was assigning for all of that. And I began this was 2011, officiating basketball. When basketball season was over, he said, "Man, I really need some guys for baseball. You want to umpire some baseball?" I said, "Well, I guess I could." And then he said, when baseball season was over, he says, "Man, we need football officials. Come on." And so basically, I've been over the last almost 15 years. I officiate four sports, most of them from youth all the way through adults. And it gives me an opportunity to be very active and very in view of many, many families in our community. They know who I am. They have that somewhat of a connection there.
Yeah.
It
You
allows
just
me
can't
to.
make any bad calls or you lose church members,
Well,
right?
of course, I never do that. I don't ever miss one.
Yeah.
Uh, my demeanor, my personality is such that I'm able to kind of stay focused on things. I really don't have a lot of issues. There are people that complain from time to time, but for the most part, they're very happy when they see me show up as one of their officials. And so it's been a good thing. If it ever got to the place where I felt like it was damaging to my testimony or being a negative rather than a positive in the community, then I would certainly not do that. But God's given me the opportunity to. I'm the head of our Football Officials Association. I assign all of the officials in the northeast corner of Oklahoma. I've had the opportunity to be a state championship official in football. I've worked a all state game in basketball, and so it's been a lot of fun. It's
Yeah.
it's
I was going to ask you what's the biggest game you've officiated? Was that the high school football
Yeah,
state
I did.
championship?
Yeah, in 2022, I worked the 2A state championship, Washington versus Millwood. It was an exciting game,
Yeah.
and it was held at the UCO, yeah, University of Central Oklahoma over in Edmond. So, very, big uh, environment. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some big time football in Oklahoma, high school football.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Everybody thinks
I
Texas, but I mean Jinx and Owasso and a lot of the schools around Tulsa
Bixby.
are good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bixby, yeah.
Yeah. I just worked a basketball game Tuesday night with the guy that's going to be the white hat for the Bixby Owasso State Championship this Saturday. So
Hmm.
yeah, he's they're pretty excited about that. Lindsey Sladen asked me on Tuesday in our meeting, he said, "So what do you think, Bixby or Owasso?" And I said, "Well, I'd love to say I think Owasso's going to win, but Bixby's been in the title game 12 years in a row and
Wow.
won most of those. I think maybe they've lost maybe one or two of those
Hmm.
out of 12 years. So
Yeah.
they are they're pretty good.
All right, hey, let's wrap this up. I don't want to take all your day. I want to end what I call some quick hitters. So I want to give you a couple options. You
Okay.
just tell me what stands out to you. I always start with this one. Would you rather read a book or watch a movie?
Probably watch a movie.
Yeah.
Just time element. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie? All-time favorite movie?
You know, I man, that's quite a question. Uh
Yeah, I've pegged you as a Remember the Titans kind of guy.
Facing the Giants.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite movies. The thing where he blindfolds the kid and makes him carry the kid up the football field,
Yeah,
how far
crab
he can
walk the
go.
whole way.
Oh man, that's really good. I
Yeah,
like.
that's good. All right, are you a stay up late or get up early?
Uh, I'm not a stay up late guy anymore. So of the two, I'm a get up early guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you a plan everything to the detail or just go with the flow?
I am a fly by the seat of my pants. Now that's again over these last few years, because I've had to learn to delegate things. That's one of the lessons I've learned by being here this long that I have to be passing off some of these areas of ministry. But when you do that, you also have to uh, be sure that you've planned a little further in advance. So,
Right,
but
right.
I'm a very spontaneous guy.
Are you when you do road trips, what's your favorite snack, salty or sweet?
Again, kind of a compromise. I like trail mix that has the honey roasted stuff in it. So
Yeah,
there's both of it in there.
there you go.
That's
That's
my
good. I
yeah.
can do that. What's a better vacation, a cruise or a resort?
I love the cruises because you can go to different places and you don't have to go from hotel to hotel, and plus the food is great. So I'd say cruise.
Yeah. How many have you been on? I know you've done.
I've just done three. It went for our 20th anniversary. Shelley and I flew to Honolulu and took a 7-day cruise around Hawaii, which was really cool because we got to see several of the islands, but you had the ship. And then for our 40th anniversary, we flew to Seattle and did the cruise to Alaska. That
Hmm.
was a lot of fun. And then we hosted our state fellowship hosted a marriage enrichment cruise. Um, just last year with Otis Ledbetter as our speaker and
Yeah.
went to the Caribbean. It was good.
Are you texting someone or you want to talk to them on the phone?
I'd rather talk to him on the phone just because I I pretty much am a person who we're going to have a conversation. I'm not going to, if I'm texting, it's okay and it's thumbs up and that stuff for the most part. But if we want to talk any details, I'm going to talk to you on the phone.
Would you prefer to eat at home or eat out at a restaurant?
Oh, we eat out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your go-to restaurant?
I love PF Chang's
Mm,
or Abuelos for Mexican.
yeah.
Those are probably if you're going to ask, you want to go somewhere special, what's going to be probably PF Chang's. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you don't have a PF Chang's in Grove, Oklahoma.
So,
Where do you, Tulsa?
we either go to Tulsa or Rogers,
Oh yeah, I
Arkansas.
forgot Rogers, Arkansas
Yeah.
has one now.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're located We're an hour from Rogers. We're 45 minutes from Joplin, Missouri. We're 40 minutes from Baxter Springs, Kansas, and we're an hour and 10 minutes from Tulsa. So, we have a pretty good choice of things
Yeah,
like
that's good. And on the lake, so you
yeah,
can't beat that. So
that's right.
all right, last one. You got one meal to eat the rest of your life. Are you choosing tacos or pizza?
It's got to be tacos. Pizza. I like pizza, but yeah, tacos. That's my every Tuesday meal. So
There you go for Taco Tuesday, huh?
that's
Yeah,
right.
that's good.
That's right.
All right. Hey, well, Marty, thanks for taking the time to join us on this call. You got any last words of wisdom you want to share before we go?
No, you had mentioned a scripture verse and things. What my life has been focused on in these last few years is pressing toward the mark. God laid on my heart a few years ago. I came home from a national fellowship meeting, and I gave my church my 8 year notice at that point, and said we need to be preparing to make a transition in leadership so that the ministry can flourish more after I'm gone than it has since I've been here. And so we've been doing little things to try to prepare ourselves for that. We're still 4 years away from that. But at the time that I'm looking at, I'll be 70 years old. I will have pastored here for 25 years,
Mm.
and I want to do more things. I've just gotten my master's degree this last year from LBU, and working on my doctorate. So what I'd like to do is when I retire from here, go to Bible colleges on the mission field and teach and things like that. But the temptation when you set a date out there that this is going to be the end of this chapter of my life, the temptation is to want to coast. And so every place along the journey that I've had the opportunity, that I ask people to pray for me and pray that I will stretch toward that finish line and not coast in these last few years. And so God has been good to us. We've seen right now enjoying probably one of the most fruitful times of our ministry. We've seen 38 people saved this year, and the church has grown by 10%. And so I believe that God is honoring that, and I want to see that continue right to the end.
Yeah, that's wise to be planning that out for the church. This is a whole other conversation, but there's definitely a shortfall of pastors and staff right now. So to have that plan in place is very, very wise. So appreciate you doing that. So again, thanks for joining us on this call, this podcast, and for everybody listening. Thanks for joining us today and jumping in on this conversation with Pastor Marty Hughes. Until next time, God bless.